With the release of Blue Lock Chapter 329 and the soon-to-debut performances of the France vs Japan game, we've got some very interesting information regarding Isagi and Blue Lock. The current standing of the story has placed Isagi at the top of the pedestal, and it's led to Isagi feeling overwhelmed with anxiety. But what exactly does this mean for the story? Well, I think it's fair to say that this chapter might begin the downfall of Yoichi Isagi, but also how this downfall will eventually lead to Isagi never being able to reach the spot of best striker in the world. So I'm here to explain how all that is gonna go down. This theory combines so many different theories of mine together, and now it's all finally making sense. Before getting into the video though, spoiler warning for the latest events of the Blue Lock series, and if you are not caught up, I would suggest you click off this video now if you wish to not be spoiled. With recent developments in some chapters since the Nigeria game ended, we've seen some pretty interesting development for Isagi. At the start of the series, going from a player that even Henri was unsure about recruiting based on his lack of striker drive, to becoming one of the greatest egoists in the entire series, and with the current position that Isagi is in, he has it all. Like he said himself, he's the top of Blue Lock. His relationship with his rivals is good, and now he's even inherited the dream of Ego, someone he considered to be the benefactor of his dream. But when you truly realize the circumstance that Isagi is in, it's kind of concerning. Isagi has really achieved all he wanted to in his soccer career, and he's not satisfied. Two core elements of Blue Lock's ideals. But it's funny because I don't think I've ever seen Isagi more disheartened. Despite being in a position of the utmost freedom, he really seems to be limited or uncomfortable given this new environment, and that's all due to expectations. This chapter really highlighted how Isagi is essentially holding the weight of the world's expectations and Blue Lock on his shoulders. The development of his rivals, the hopes of the world, the project of Blue Lock, Ego's dreams and goals. Really, Isagi is holding a lot of responsibility right now, and I think it's going to lead to his downfall. Many people have been theorizing about Isagi's new ego from the PXG game and how it will come back to bite him, or how this new ego is not as good as he believes it to be, and it's all really making some sense right now. I mean, turning yourself into a tool for victory is shouldering the responsibility for the sake of winning. It's really not a good mentality to have. We even have some supporting information regarding this in chapter 304 with his parents. While many people made jokes and theories about Isagi's family passing away, I think it's important to note their dialogue with him here. Isagi's parents affirming to him that they will always support him was reason to suspect something will happen with Isagi to isolate him from Blue Lock. And I think that this makes a lot of sense, especially given parallels with Nagi. Despite the hate that Nagi gets sometimes, you need to acknowledge that he is considered to be the second main character in the Blue Lock series by the creator themselves. And to this capacity, Nagi and Isagi parallel each other very well. In the NEL, as Nagi declined, Isagi soared. And now as Nagi is beginning to take flight inside B, many can only wonder what this means for Isagi in this next arc. Given this setup, it seems like he's going to fall soon. Like I mentioned, Isagi is shouldering a lot of responsibility, and despite theoretically he is in a position of complete freedom at the top of the world, he really isn't. These expectations of others are restrictions placed upon his soul, to the point where he's literally having moments of anxiety just thinking about it. But specific wording from the last chapter is what has me worried. Isagi thinks to himself about the Blue Lock project and his role in it, and he says, "But if my condition slips, if I mess up and lose, there's a good chance that all of Blue Lock would collapse with me." In Isagi's current mind, he's being placed as the sole foundation of Blue Lock, meaning he is going to keep pushing himself to keep this project alive, not just for the sake of him, but for the sake of others. And I think that these performances and this downfall for Isagi are going to begin to show itself in the match against France next chapter. This chapter really made it clear that France is going to be one of the hardest teams that Blue Lock will ever face off against, seeing as Yoichi clearly addressed the claims of France being the team destined to win the U20 World Cup. But I think other comments show concern here as well. Isagi seems to be the only one stressed out about his current situation at the top, while others like Yukimiya, Chigiri, and Corona all essentially use Isagi as their crutch to avoid such anxieties. To build Isagi up as this foundation is incredibly scary, especially for his own mental health. Let's not forget, in this next match, Blue Lock is going to face off against Loki, a player that Isagi previously trash-talked in the NEL not too long ago. And given his desire to face off against Isagi again, and his breaks that he scored against England without sweating, it seems to me like Loki is going to be on his A game, which again, is very bad for Isagi. He's already stressed about underperforming and shouldering this responsibility. So what happens if he gets smoked by Loki? What happens if Loki comes out onto the pitch and does exactly what Isagi is worried about happening? Because to him, if he fails, Blue Lock fails. This parallels another character, my favorite character in fact, Hyoma Chigiri. At the beginning of the series, we see that Chigiri's ability to sprint was tied down by his own mental state and anxieties about running. For Isagi, similar things could occur. These chains could restrain Isagi's thinking and mental state, resulting in a constant restriction, and in turn, a worse performance for him as a player. If this consistently would occur, it would in fact lead to the end of Blue Lock, since Isagi is one of its star players. Against France, Isagi could continue to push himself to try and break through these shackles, only to hold himself deeper and deeper into this anxiety. It would explain why Isagi was being glazed so much in the Nigeria game and the PXG game of the NEL. Kaneshiro is building Isagi up to have it all and to be praised as this god amongst men, only to take everything away from him going into the U20 World Cup. He's showing that despite soccer being a well-beloved sport, it is a cruel world. This would actually parallel to another character very well, that being Michael Kaiser. Kaiser and Isagi were constantly compared to each other throughout the series, with even Isagi saying that Kaiser is the true embodiment of his ideal style. With this circumstance, Isagi is essentially enduring this same restrictive element that Kaiser did during the PXG game. The only problem is here, Isagi is not a restrictive type. Kaiser, as a restrictive type, learned to thrive with that kind of mental pressure, and we see from other players like Nagi, Vado, and Rain that they too do well in circumstances like that. But Isagi doesn't. Given those mental restrictions, he'll be struggling to perform and slowly crumble as each failure pushes him closer and closer to his death as a striker. Especially with Ego's dream now being given to Isagi about discovering this god of soccer, Isagi will be even more panicked. He considers Ego to be the reason his dream has become a reality, the benefactor of his dream. And now, he can no longer repay Ego for what he's done for him, and he might not ever be able to. This also ties into side B very well. A lot of people were wondering how players like Nagi, Kira, Shindo, and others would be able to compete with the Blue Lockers in terms of skill, assuming they had joined the team. But that's just it. If Isagi begins to fail, all of Blue Lock begins to fail and crumble, which makes it easier for them to compete with them. Side B was made to prove that Ego was wrong, that his training methods don't work. If Blue Lock's star pupil begins to fail, all hope is lost for him. At the same time, with superstars like Akira and Nagi within the scope of Japan, this gives them the chance to make a comeback onto the world stage. If Isagi begins to crumble due to the France game, the match against England is where he will truly meet his end, potentially being subbed off the pitch in the process. At which point, this would be where Nagi would capitalize on this moment, seizing control of Blue Lock with a potential return. This also ties into my theory about Nagi returning during the England game. As with Blue Lock's star player down, Japan will need anything to try and survive the group stage. And with Barata essentially needing Blue Lock to make it past the knockout stage, he'd really do anything to make sure that his money didn't go to waste. This is also under the assumption that Side B has and always will be rigged for Kira and Nagi, more so for Nagi, to where no matter what, Nagi was always going to rejoin the team. But anyways, the point I'm getting to here is that Isagi in the next game against France could potentially fall off simply due to him overcompensating. As a result of this, I don't think Isagi will become the best striker in the world by the end of the series. Well, okay, not inherently. I've had this theory for a while, but I wasn't sure how to turn it into a full video, but alongside this theory, I think it connects pretty well. Given this recent development with position as number 1, it seems that being the number 1 entitles you to have a restrictive ego. Isagi mentioning players like Kaiser, Rin, and Noah in regards to the pressure of being number one is a huge deal, considering all of them share the ego type of being restrictive. He also does mention Loki, who presents as a freedom type, but there are theories out there as to him being a restrictive type, since it hasn't entirely been confirmed what class he is. Assuming he is though, this would mean that inherently the top players on each respective team are all restrictive types, whereas Isagi is not. He's a freedom type. And I think that's very telling given Ego's backstory panels. Ego says that he eventually gave up on soccer after not being able to encounter this god of soccer again, which to me just sounds like he was overwhelmed by restriction. So in both cases, Isagi and Ego are being overwhelmed by restriction, only now it seems that Isagi is suffering the results of being the best. I think that this also sets up Isagi for future development in upcoming matches. Assuming Isagi begins to fall off in France and England, eventually being pulled off the pitch for someone like Nagi, who would then go on to win the game, this might actually be the best thing for Isagi. If Nagi returns and shows off by saving Japan, slowly, the responsibility of number one will not be on Isagi anymore. BLUELOCK's hopes won't be on him, and he won't have to shoulder that weight. Doing so would get rid of the restriction binding him and open him up to some potential development. Getting rid of that restriction will allow for Isagi to achieve things and process things a lot easier. For example, assuming Loki has a weakness, without Isagi's mental restriction clouding his judgment, he will be able to process and understand it. Assuming they rematch, Isagi will have a counter to Loki, especially since he is not placed into an environment of restriction anymore. Plus, this could even lead to Isagi understanding how to thrive within restriction, achieving that golden brain mentality that I've mentioned in previous theories. But as for Isagi not becoming the best striker in the world, I believe that there is a more suitable character, Michael Kaiser. While you can all argue about who you think is better, Kaiser is in fact the biggest rival to Isagi in the entire series. And if you don't agree with that, tough shit, the creator of the series says so. Plus, with all the comparisons between them and their predecessors in Noah and Ego, it makes sense that these two will be the ones to face off at the end of the series for the title of best striker in the world. And to me, even if Isagi wins that game against Germany, I think Kaiser will still receive the title. When you look at what makes someone the best striker in the world, it's not just goals, it's the flashiness and consistency and reproducibility with your goals. Noah became the best striker in the world because he has a weapon that lets him mass produce those goals on his own. Kaiser has a weapon that visually allows him to produce high level and reproducible goals. Isagi's main weapon, being ambidexterity, isn't all that flashy. The new Generation 11 title, for instance, is a title made based on marketability of a player, but also is used to judge the players who will be the superstars of the next generation. Being the world's best doesn't just mean you need to have the capacity to score high level and reproducible goals, but you also need to do so while marketing yourself. Isagi's adaptability isn't very marketable. He's never really been acknowledged as being adaptable by anyone other than actual players. But the players don't make the determination as to who is the best. It's the world. Plus, with Isagi on a team with other high-level strikers like Baro, Shido, and Rain, it's going to be difficult for him to compete with them to score goals, while also competing with Kaiser, a player who seemingly is the solo striker for Germany's national team. That's not even counting the loyalty and support of the genius and top-tier playmaker, Alexis Ness. If Japan were to face off against Germany, Kaiser would likely score more goals and higher level goals than Isagi because of the lack of competition for Kaiser's side. So to the world, Kaiser's goals are more impressive in quality and can surpass Isagi in quantity. I think it's going to be very difficult for Isagi to achieve the title of best striker in the world so long as players like Kaiser and Loki are around. But I think that's a good thing. That's because Isagi won't become the best striker. He'll become the best player. In the new Egoist League, with how Noah describes Snuffy, he acknowledges him as being the best player in the world, while he himself is the best striker. I could see a very similar situation going on with Isagi and Kaiser here. Kaiser is a better goal scorer and can produce higher quality goals, but as a player, Isagi is superior to Kaiser in other factors. His playmaking capabilities, his talent for always being where he needs to be, predictive and analytical skill combined with his efficiency, I think the world can at least acknowledge and regard him for that. And I think him not being the best striker in the world is good, at least narratively. Isagi not being the best striker in the world doesn't make him not a striker or make him a bad striker, but that gives him something to strive for. Being regarded as the best player in the world is not enough for him. He wants to be regarded as the best striker. So, have him compete and continue to not be satisfied as he chases that goal, all while keeping that rivalry with Michael Kaiser fueled and burning. And that's simply just my theory in regards to this new development for Isagi and what it could mean for the future. Now, obviously, I think that this teaser is very interesting for the story and what it means for upcoming matches, but this is simply a theory and I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't expect you guys to agree with me on this, but this is just a theory. Aside from that though, I hope you guys did enjoy this video and will continue to enjoy it in the future. I just want to leave a final reminder to join my Discord server if you're ever interested in getting any more involved with our amazing community. As for the question of the video, do you think Isagi is going to fall off? Leave me your thoughts down below in the comment section. And like always, thank you all so much for watching. Like and subscribe to see more awesome Blue Lock content just like this.